If you die with $10 million in your bank account, congratulations. You have just committed a massive calculation error. We represent wealth as a high score in a video game, where the goal is to see how big the number gets before the screen goes black. But in the real world, money is just stored energy. It is fuel. And if you die with a full tank, it means you worked thousands of hours, sacrificed weekends, missed family events, and stressed over market dips for absolutely nothing. You traded your limited life hours for currency that you never actually converted back into life. Today, we are talking about the die with zero philosophy. It is uncomfortable. It goes against everything your grandparents taught you. And it involves a graph that terrified me the first time I saw it. But if you get this right, you stop working for your money, and your money finally starts working for your life. Most financial advice is obsessed with accumulation. We are told to save until it hurts, max out the 401k, and pray we live long enough to enjoy it. But Bill Perkins, a hedge fund manager and high-stakes poker player, looked at the math of life and realised we are doing it wrong. His book, Die with Zero, argues that the optimal financial life ends with a net worth of exactly zero. Now, before you panic, this is not about blowing your savings on sports cars and ending up destitute at 80. It is about an optimization problem. It is about aligning your spending with your biological ability to enjoy it. It is about realizing that $1 at age 30 buys you a fundamentally different experience than $1 at age 80. We are going to break down the math of wealth decay, the psychology of spending, and the specific time buckets you need to use so you do not run out of money. This is a longer deep dive because we have to undo decades of programming that tells you to hoard resources like a dragon sitting on gold. If you want to actually enjoy the wealth you are building, do me a favor and hit the subscribe button. It is the best return on investment you will get on your time today, and it tells the algorithm that we value nuance over hype. Let's start with the biggest lie in personal finance. The lie is that money has a constant value. We assume that $100 is always worth $100, adjusted for inflation. But that is only true on a spreadsheet. In human terms, the utility of money changes drastically depending on when you use it. Think about it. If I give you $10,000 when you are 21, you might backpack across Europe, sleep in hostels, and have the time of your life. That money buys you memories, friendships, and a sense of adventure that shapes who you are. Now, imagine I give you that same $10,000 when you are 95 and in a nursing home. What does it buy you? Maybe a slightly nicer bed? The money is the same, but your ability to convert it into joy has collapsed. We can actually graph this. Perkins calls it the utility curve. On one axis, you have your age, and on the other, you have your ability to extract pleasure from money. In your 20s and 30s, your health and energy are high, but your money is usually low. This is when your utility curve is at its peak. Every dollar you spend yields a massive return in life satisfaction. As you age, that curve starts to slope downward. By the time you hit your 70s or 80s, your health becomes the limiting factor. You simply cannot ski the Alps or hike Machu Picchu, no matter how many millions you have in the bank. The math suggests that saving aggressively in your 20s to fund a lavish lifestyle in your 80s is inefficient. You are transferring purchasing power from a time when you can use it to a time when you physically cannot. The problem is that we are wired to delay gratification. We feel guilty spending money today because we are terrified of the future. We tell ourselves, I will take that trip when I retire. I will buy the boat when the house is paid off. We treat our future selves as these mythical creatures who will have infinite time and energy. But we forget that our future self is also going to be tired. They might have back problems. They might not want to travel. By delaying consumption, we aren't just saving money, we are gambling on our health. And the house usually wins. We end up being the richest person in the graveyard, having declined thousands of opportunities to live because we were too busy preparing to die. So, what is the solution? It is conscious front-loading. You need to accept that your spending should not be a flat line. It should be hump-shaped. You should be spending more in your middle years, your 40s and 50s, when you have both the money and the health to enjoy it. This contradicts the traditional FIRE movement, which often advocates for extreme deprivation until you hit a magic number. The Die with Zero approach says, do not starve your 30-year-old self to overfeed your 80-year-old self. If you have the cash, take the trip now. Buy the experience now. The memory dividend, the joy you get from looking back on that memory, compounds just like interest. If you wait until you are 80 to have fun, you have 0 years to enjoy the memory of it. Hold on. I know what you are thinking. Tom, this sounds reckless. If I spend all my money at 40, I will be eating cat food at 70. And that is a fair fear. But here is the trap. Most people overshoot safety by a factor of 10. We are so afraid of running out of money that we end up working an extra 5 or 10 years just to add a buffer that we never touch. The cost of that buffer is not just dollars. It is years of your life. It is missing your kids' childhoods because you were grinding for a promotion you didn't need. The biggest risk isn't dying broke. The biggest risk is dying with a surplus that represents years of bondage you voluntarily signed up for. If you retire with 5 million, and you could have retired comfortably with 2 million, you worked for free for a decade. Let that sink in. Let's clarify what dying with zero actually means. The myth is that you are supposed to time your death perfectly and bounce your last check to the undertaker. That is obviously impossible because we don't know our expiration date. If you aim for exactly 0 and live 3 years longer than expected, you are in trouble. So people reject the whole philosophy because the precision seems dangerous. But that misses the point. The goal isn't to hit $0 and 0 cents. The goal is to stop treating a growing net worth as a badge of honor in your final years. It is about changing the target from maximize wealth to minimize regret. The math relies on establishing a safety floor. You calculate what you need for basic survival, food, shelter, medical care, until your maximum possible age, say 95 or 100. You secure that money first. Maybe it's an annuity, maybe it's a conservative bond ladder, or just a paid-off house and social security. That is your floor. The Die with Zero philosophy applies to everything above that floor. If you have $1 million and your survival floor costs $500,000, that other $500,000 is discretionary. That is the money you need to decay. If you don't spend it, it is wasted utility. The math dictates that you should be drawing down that surplus aggressively while you are still mobile, rather than letting it sit in an index fund accumulating dividends for a ghost. This is psychologically brutal for savers. If you have spent 40 years building a pile of money, seeing that number go down feels like failure. It triggers a primal scarcity alarm in your brain. You feel like you are bleeding out. I have seen retirees who have $2 million in the bank refuse to buy a $5 latte because they are in accumulation mode. They cannot switch gears. They are winning the game, but they refuse to stop playing. You have to rewire your brain to understand that spending down your principal is not a loss. It is the successful execution of the plan. You are harvesting the crop you planted. If you let the crop rot in the field because you like looking at it, you are not a farmer. You are a hoarder. To fix this, you need to identify your peak net worth date. In a traditional model, your net worth peaks on the day you die. In the Die with Zero model, your net worth should peak somewhere between age 50 and 60. After that peak, it should decline. Seeing that decline on a graph should be a source of pride, not panic. It means you are winning. It means you are converting numbers into experiences. If your net worth is still going up at age 75 and you aren't planning to donate it to cure cancer, you are doing it wrong. You need to set up automated spending systems. Force yourself to take the withdrawals. It sounds crazy, but for many people, the hardest financial discipline isn't saving. It is giving yourself permission to spend the money you already saved. Here is a concept that changed how I view travel. Perkins calls it the memory dividend. We usually think of an experience as a one-time event. You go to Italy, you eat the pasta, you come home. Transaction over. But that is not true. You remember the pasta. You talk about the pasta. You look at photos of the pasta. You get utility from that experience every time you recall it for the rest of your life. This means experiences you have early in life pay out dividends for decades. An experience at age 20 pays out for 60 years. An experience at age 80 pays out for maybe 5 years. This is why blowing money in your 20s isn't always irresponsible. It is investing in a long-term memory asset. If you wait until you are retired to start living, you have missed out on 40 years of dividends. Let's talk about buckets. The myth we tell ourselves is, I'll get around to it. We view our lives as one big bucket of time. As long as we are alive, we can do the things we want. But that is false. Your life is actually a series of distinct time buckets, and once a bucket closes, you can never put anything into it again. You have a specific bucket for traveling with young children. That bucket lasts maybe 10 years. Once they are teenagers, that experience is gone forever. You cannot buy it back for any amount of money. You have a bucket for high-intensity physical adventure. That closes when your knees go. If you put off skiing until your skiing bucket is closed, the money you saved for it is worthless. We need to operationalize this. Divide your remaining life into 5-year blocks. Age 30 to 35, 35 to 40, and so on. Now, list the experiences you want to have. Be specific. Hiking the Appalachian Trail? That belongs in the 30 to 50 bucket. Reading books by the fire? That can go in the 70 to 80 bucket. When you actually map this out, you realize the go-go years, the years where you have high energy, are incredibly finite. You might only have 15 summers left where you can physically handle a backpacking trip. When you see the number 15, it changes the math. It makes spending money on that trip today not an indulgence, but a scarcity necessity. You are not buying a vacation, you are securing a slot in a closing window. We procrastinate on joy because it feels safer to just keep earning. We tell ourselves we are being responsible, but in reality, we are being cowardly. We are afraid to confront the fact that we are aging. By putting things in the someday pile, we pretend we have infinite time. Confronting the time buckets forces you to look at your own mortality. It forces you to admit that you will never be 30 again. That is uncomfortable. But that discomfort is the only thing that will snap you out of the zombie mode of work, sleep, repeat. You have to realize that money is renewable. You can always make more money. Time is non-renewable. Once a time bucket empties, it stays empty. The practical move is to label your phases: go-go, slow-go, and no-go. Your go-go years are typically until age 65 or 70. This is where your spending should be highest. This is where you burn the fuel. Your slow-go years are 70 to 80. You still travel, but maybe it's cruises instead of treks. Your spending drops. Then the no-go years, 80 plus, where spending naturally craters, because you aren't doing much besides basic living and healthcare. The Die with Zero plan says you should fund the go-go years aggressively, even if it means entering the slow-go years with less capital than traditional planners recommend. Why? Because you won't need the capital then. You need it now. Stop saving for a no-go lifestyle while you are in your go-go prime. Now, the biggest counter-argument I hear is, Tom, what about the kids? I want to leave them a legacy. And that is noble. But let's look at how inheritance actually works. If you live to be 85, your kids will likely be roughly 60 years old when they inherit your money. Think about that. You are giving a massive windfall to a 60-year-old. They are already nearing retirement. The money has low utility for them. They have already struggled through buying a house, raising their own kids, and paying for college. You essentially made them wait until they were old to get help. If you really care about your kids, you shouldn't leave them an inheritance when you die. You should give them an inheritance while you are alive. The myth is that a good parent leaves a giant check at the funeral. It is dramatic, it is traditional, and it is inefficient. The Die with Zero philosophy argues that money has a peak utility for your children too, and it is usually between age 25 and 40. That is when they are buying a first home, starting a business, or starting a family. That is when $50,000 can change the trajectory of their entire life. Getting $500,000 when they are 60 is nice, but it doesn't change their life trajectory. It just pads their account. We hoard money from our kids when they need it most, only to dump it on them when they need it least. This is simply the time value of money applied to life satisfaction. If you give your child $30,000 for a house down payment at age 30, that money saves them years of renting and allows them to build equity. The compound effect of that early help is massive. If you hold that same $30,000 and let it grow to $100,000 by the time you die, you might think you are giving them more, but you aren't. You deprive them of the utility of that money during their hardest years. Perkins argues you should separate your charitable intent and your inheritance intent from your death. Treat them as active line items in your budget today. Do not make your children wait for your death to benefit from your success. Why don't we do this? Control and fear. We keep the money because it makes us feel secure, and subconsciously, it keeps the family orbit around us. But also, we worry. What if I give it away and then I need it? This brings us back to the safety flaw. You should never give away money you might need for basic survival. But for the surplus? The psychological shift is moving from hoarding for safety to distributing for impact. Seeing your daughter start a business with your help while you are alive to witness it is infinitely more rewarding than having her read your will after the funeral. You get to see the joy. That is a utility dividend for you too. The actionable step is the warm hand approach. Give with a warm hand, not a cold one. Look at your estate plan. If you plan to leave 50% to your kids, ask yourself, why wait? Can I give 10% now? Can I fund a 529 plan for the grandkids now? Can I pay for a family vacation now? By moving these transfers forward, you are essentially decaying your wealth intentionally, which lowers the risk of dying with a huge unspent surplus. You are lowering your final net worth, yes, but you are maximizing the total family utility. You are ensuring the money does work when the work is needed. Stop treating your death as the primary financial distribution event of your life. So, here is the summary. The game is not to stack the highest number. The game is to maximize fulfillment. That means recognizing that your ability to enjoy money decays with age. It means front-loading experiences into your go-go years. It means setting a peak net worth date and having the courage to spend down after that. And it means giving to your loved ones when it actually matters. This is terrifying. It goes against our survival instincts. But the alternative is worse. The alternative is working late nights in your 40s to buy freedom in your 80s that you physically cannot enjoy. That is a tragedy. Do not let your fear of the future rob you of the present. Run the numbers, find your safety floor, and then, for the love of God, spend the rest. I want to hear from you in the comments. This is a controversial philosophy. Does the idea of spending down your principal give you a panic attack? Or do you know someone who died with millions and never took a vacation? Let's get a debate going. If you found this perspective useful, share this video with someone who needs to stop hoarding and start living. I'm Tom, this is Tom Talks Money, and I will see you in the next one. Go spend something.